we live? Carol, are we live? Sorry,
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Global Chinese Economic and Technology Summit. This is panel session 1, the role of global Chinese diaspora in global recovery. I now hand over the floor to the session to Professor Dr. Chean, who is the moderator of the session, to introduce the panel. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carol. So as Carol mentioned, this is a parallel session, and the title of this session is The Role of the Global Chinese Diaspora in Global Recovery. As many of you know, it doesn't matter which part of the world you go to, you're very likely to come across two things. It's a Chinese person and a Chinese restaurant or takeaway. So it's quite obvious that the Chinese are found every corner of this world, and they are increasingly playing a key role in the world's move towards globalization. So the global Chinese diaspora has contributed to many countries around the world, and this session will look at in terms of entrepreneurship, technology, medicine, innovation, and nation building. So the question we want to ask ourselves and the panel is that how can the global Chinese diaspora work towards the post-pandemic recovery? So I'm very pleased to be here to be chairing this session, and we have a very distinguished panel of speakers. Unfortunately, one of our speakers, Professor Kriengsak, who is the president of the Institute of Future Studies for Development in Thailand, he can't make it, but he will be providing a short video which I will play at the end of this session. So I'm sure you all have a copy of the program, so I'm not going to give a long introduction because I think these people are very well known. So I'll just start off with our first speaker, and that is Dato Seri Chean, who is a very famous musician from Malaysia and also a very famous conductor. Dato?
Hello, thank you very much, Professor Chean. It's an honor to be here again to speak on this panel. I'm happy to see my old friends Edmond and Chean again on Zoom. Okay, now we are going to talk about the role of global Chinese diaspora. They have countless ways in which the global Chinese diaspora can contribute towards global recovery. Apart from creating business networks, fostering better understanding between Chinese and Western cultures is very important because misunderstandings might occur due to lack of understanding or knowledge of the culture and ethics between the parties involved. For example, Germans are quite frank and don't beat around the bush when making a point during discussions. Giving direct feedback is their understanding of efficiency, honesty, and respect. But for us Chinese, this directness is often perceived as being rude, whereby subtle and indirect criticism is the cultural norm for us. So, and it is not unusual for Chinese to involve a third party to convey feedbacks or criticisms to save face for both parties. So, another example of situations whereby misunderstandings might occur is like Germans or Westerners are very direct when they say yes, they mean yes, no means no. So Asians are more subtle. For example, maybe some of you have encountered this situation before when you are invited for tea, for example, at a Westerner's house, and they offer you a piece of cake. Would you like a piece of cake? And Asians say, oh no, thank you. And they are surprised that they actually won't get anything to eat, and everybody else will get a piece of cake. So it's very important for both sides, also Westerners to understand the Chinese culture, and for Chinese also to understand that if somebody takes away the cake when you say no, it doesn't mean that they want to be rude to you, but because they take no as no. So, the role of a Chinese, global Chinese diaspora can be that we can help create better understanding between the different cultures by hosting seminars, talks, and forums. So to understand each other's culture, so there will not be so many misunderstandings as we move towards global recovery. Okay, that's.
Thank you very much, Dato. I think that's quite interesting. Can I quickly bring in our second speaker, Stanley from Canada. Stanley is the CEO of World Capacity Builders. Stanley, how can the Chinese diaspora contribute to post-pandemic recovery?
Well, the way I look at it, Warren is a very good bridge between the Western culture or foreign culture and Chinese culture. We are the bridge. Like the other thing is, there are about 90 million wealthy Chinese out there. They're the source of funds that could be put to use in infrastructure or in technology that could help the whole post-COVID recovery happen. We also have a very good network of business people who are very savvy in business. Thank you. Somebody has usurped my position here. Hello.
Yeah. It's all right. I think this is being shut down. Go ahead.
Okay. So that's the way I look at it, and there are a lot of retired overseas Chinese people like me who have lots of experience, who really don't want to go and lie down and do nothing. They want to contribute. So I think we need to start a new network of such people, useful, experienced, knowledgeable people to help us regrow the economy.
Mr. Wang, can you please press the mute button? Go ahead, Stanley. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm done. Thank you very much.
Okay, so can I just briefly summarize? So you talk about the Chinese diaspora as acting as a bridge in the post-pandemic recovery between China and the rest of the world, or the Chinese diaspora and the rest of the world. And you think that there's lots of talent, especially among the retirees, who can also tap on the extensive work held by the system.
Nice. Yes.
Thank you, Stanley. So our next speaker is Dr. Mabel, Dr. Mabel from China. She's actually the co-founder and secretary general of the Center for China and Globalization.
Yes, greetings from the Chean. Yeah, I'm totally okay with the box because people will talk and and create some networks to reach China in the world. That's quite impressive. Just the observation that the classic Chinese people can the talent is cool from overseas, especially those retired talents like the submission can build up the network to reach China and the world. I think they are some functions and some significant important role for Chinese people and especially in the global recovery. The first one is to use the advantage of connecting China to the world to promote global economic recovery. The Trans-Diaspora are the bridge and link between China world and global recovery. Chinese as the business can promote global economic growth through their unique role in China world. Our world is going through a pandemic and global changes. Both are seen in century. Unilateralism and protectionism are on the rise, and the globalization is incountercurrent. On the other hand, China is pushing a dual circularization development paradigm. China continues to open up and deepen international economic and trade cooperation, and has been the world's second largest economy for 11 consecutive years from 2010. Under the situation of COVID-19 pandemic sweeping the world from last year, China's GDP reached 101.6 trillion, up 2.3% from a year earlier, making the country the only major economy in the world with positive growth. Made in China has become an important part of the global industry chain and supply chain. As regards to investment, China is the largest investor and the second largest recipient of FDI in the world. In terms of trade, China became the world's largest country with regards to trade in goods. In 2013, the Chinese economy has become the main driving force behind global recovery, and China's foreign economic exchanges and cooperation are conducive to the global recovery. The Therefore, Chinese business hold the role of transition China in the world in the era of international economy. So the first one, I think that the Chinese diaspora can play a significant role with China in the world promote global economic recovery. Secondly, is maybe use the ethnic Chinese business network (ECBN) 华商网络 to strengthen the global economic interaction and promote global recovery. The ethnic Chinese business network cross-border is also an important factor in promoting global recovery. The ethnic Chinese business network is part of the global economic network and has been promoting the development of globalization. The informal and non-institutionalized operation mode of ethnic Chinese business network has played an active role in the Asian financial crisis. The ethnic Chinese business network operates outside of this nation system or border, playing a role that the government cannot and can realize the allocation of cross-border resources. A third is to utilize the technological innovations of new generation of Chinese diaspora business to promote economic growth. According to the Chinese, among the Chinese diaspora, there are 20 million new Chinese diaspora, most of which are well educated, have an international outlook and professionalism, and have made achievements in various fields such as the economics, technology, culture, and politics. The new generation of Chinese diaspora sees the opportunity of high-tech development and funding a great number of high-tech companies. Such as in Silicon Valley, a large number of Chinese technology elites have gathered. Their innovation and entrepreneurship not only help promote the development of the local economy, but also promote global technological innovation through technological exchanges. Using those technological power to help the global recovery. So I think about there are a lot of factors can play a significant role for China diaspora to connect China and the world, especially in the post-pandemic era, and help the world's recovery. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mabel. Our next speaker is Mr. Edmond Miao. He's the chair of the Chinese Information Advice Center in the UK. Edmond?
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon. I will come in from the social perspective. So I'll leave the money-making ideas to all the great entrepreneurs we have seen throughout the morning. the computer experts throughout the whole morning and the session after lunch as well. So let me move on. I'll give you two extremes. I'll give you two opposites to let you in the end become the judge and jury as to why community, unity or disunity for that matter, matters to our Chinese diaspora all over the world. Alright? So I'll give you two updates in London where I come from. And the first one is about 3-4 weeks ago, I was invited to a anti-racism rally right in the heart of London, Chinatown. And that was because we felt as a Chinese community out there that we were constantly being harassed, and there were very unfortunate incidents of being attacked, whether they were students or being robbed, whether they were out on the streets. So, but unfortunately on that afternoon, where I also was invited to speak, the theme of that afternoon, say no to anti-racism, was actually hijacked. It was hijacked by two different groups of people. One, the pro-Hong Kong, or they call it pro-Hong Kongers, and one, the pro-Beijing or pro-China group. Now, I'm not going to go into any of the political agendas because that's not my job here, that's not my job either. But I'll tell you, if you have been on the social media, if you look up YouTube and all that, or go back and see tonight, you will see, unfortunately, the Chinese were fighting each other. There was literally, not an altercation, there was actually a fight in Chinatown. And that's bad. To me, that is bad. That is sad. But it happened, the police came in, there were arrests made, there were people who were injured and sent to hospital. But you see, this is where it makes us a laughing stock. When we should be out there trying to be together in this Chinese diaspora that we're talking about, the unity, the force that we can become, and to contribute to the good of society and our community, this was what happened. That was about 2 weeks ago. I think it was November, I can't remember. Anyway, it's about 3-4 weeks ago. Look it up in the social media. The other extreme example I want to give you is, as a Chinese charity located in Chinatown, we were able to collaborate and work with the National Health Service, NHS, and the Westminster City Council to deliver this vaccination mobile pop-up clinics throughout from May till as recently as last month. And all in all, we had about 12 mobile clinics. We helped to vaccinate, we didn't do the actual vaccination, but we helped to coordinate the vaccination of about 7,000 people. But that's not the good news. The good news is
in Penang, the district government has put extra effort to give food aid to ensure.
Okay. Right, let me come back in. That's okay, the good was this. When the pandemic and the COVID thing was going on, there were lots of efforts by the government, and it came up to the ministry responsible. In fact, we have a minister of vaccination, and that was back in about March, April, when we have these Zoom conferences, and I raised this question. So, Minister, what are you going to do for the people? And I wasn't just referring to Chinese. I said, what are you going to do for the people who are not documented, who are illegal immigrants, and they have no access to NHS, and therefore no access to GP services to back them up to go into a clinic or surgery to get their job? Wow, that triggered a national thing. Alright, and if you have been there, you read the papers. The right-wing papers, obviously, they exaggerated the situation by saying that there were hundreds of thousands of people. You know, if you've been to Chinatown, you cannot put 100,000 people there. Yes, but there were a few thousand. They came from the morning Alright, at 6 o'clock, and it grew and grew and grew. The vaccinating program was actually supposed to be from 2 o'clock, I think, but they were there at 6 o'clock. This shows you how desperate they were. And they were not just Chinese, but it shows you when we are together as a Chinese community, we care for those that are marginalized, we can do it. My challenge to the minister was very simple. What is the point? You and I can get vaccinated, but they don't get it. So we all get infected anyway. So why? So that triggered a national thing. We had people coming from Manchester, from Newcastle, from London, people who gave up a day's work, people who borrowed money for the transport, their train fare to come down to get vaccinated. But it was a fiasco. But that first mobile clinic came with only 120 jabs, vaccines. We had a few thousand people out there. And we were not, initially, I'm not criticizing the NHS or the Westminster Council, but we were not involved in that planning stage. We were just asked to be the communicator, just to publicize, just to help the translate. Since we're in Chinatown, we're a Chinese community, and we're more than glad to do it, but we kept them informed real time. At 6 o'clock, I would tell myself at early in the morning, 6 o'clock, but each hour we gave them a real time. Exactly, the cows are growing, we showed them pictures, but they didn't tell us they only had 120 jabs. But it was a good thing. Something bad happened, but it came out good because we were able to sit down with them and say, look, you got to do it because our reputation is now at stake. Alright? People think we've been fucking them around. I told you, I mean, the people who had to borrow train fares, people who gave up a day's work, because you see, these employees, they won't let them go. Because their business matters as well. So we sat down, we talked, we negotiated, and we were able then to deliver about 12 clinics, and 7,000 people got their jabs. And obviously the second jabs now. So this is about community, this is about unity, and this is very important for our Chinese diaspora overseas, whether you are in UK, whether you are in US, whether in Australia, we need to gang together, we need to be together. Not just about wealth, also about health. Okay? So this is it. You be the judge, you be the jury. Tell me, do we need that community spirit? Do we need that unity? Do we need to be disunited? Alright? To be able to go into a foreign land and to come out good for not just ourselves, not just our family, but for a common good of our own community and society in general. Alright? Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Edmond. And our final speaker is Chean, who is the president of CIAC Networks in Malaysia. Mr. Chean?
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Okay, we have heard about technology, we have heard about money making, we have heard about community. Well, I would like to touch on is moving forward, how to break the wall and create a common frequency through arts, culture, and media in support of the world economy and technology development blueprint post-pandemic. Because this is very important, although this is a bit soft approach, but why art and culture? From its investment value, educational value, historical value, culture value, common language is very important. We need a common language that we are not so sensitive and hard sell with a touch of value add. That is important because moving forward, it's all about unity. Unity from a mushroom point of view, from a Chinese point of view to other culture, other races and everything. So they need to understand. They need to understand the Chinese mentality. They need to understand the Chinese value. They need to understand the Chinese attitude. We need a wall. We need to break the wall of race through media and medium, which the medium conceive of arts and culture. For example, you can have arts and culture and brand. Today you can see Rolls-Royce dealing, co-branding with arts. You can see technology, like the Total War, the Three Kingdoms, San Guozi, the history background involved in esports. You see, this is how they are penetrating putting culture into the younger generation to let them understand. Once everyone understands everyone, or once a race understand the history or the culture of the other race, then the frequency and understanding will come closer. That is important. You see, then you have a few years ago, I think 10 years ago, China, Taiwan started with Wenchuang. They started with Wenchuang. The term was Wenchuang, but the Western term it as creative economy, which is a bit too loose for creative economy. A lot of people thought how to value add the creative world in terms of arts, in terms of culture. But actually it is not. It is how to involve, or evolve art and culture.
Your mic is muted. Go ahead.
Okay, it's like Wenchuang, it's how to redefine culture value. That is important. It is not about how to make arts perform better, but how to make arts, culture, history into our modern lifestyle. You see, moving into that. So not only moving into enhancing and protecting, promoting an individual race or Chinese culture, but it's also to reach, over to another race and let them understand. So that is where, with all this coming in, that is where it helps the world economy, the world unity, because through understanding, that will make the world better. You see, that is where media and medium will comes in important. You see, so media is we all know media is a very powerful tool, to connect or to disrupt. We need the right frequency to break the walls and build bridges. You see, so beyond medias, we need events. We need practical education, we need awards. We cannot solely depend on technology or social media where we don't have interaction, practical interaction, and it makes everything very cold. The new generation is facing such problem, such issue moving forward. Because what they know or what they are facing is that if I don't like you, I will just switch you off or I will just unfriend you. You see, the warmth is not there. If the warmth is not there, the unity will break even faster. That is very important. So in CHT network, on where we do, we collect data. It's with a team where all good things in life meet. We connect beautiful people, we promote quality brands in 3 words. Sincerity, integrity, and fairness. That is very important. So with this 20 years, we have engaged arts, culture, antiques, and also media into the system to make everyone come together. Just like we brought Malaysian art to Australia. When we brought Malaysian art to Australia, we are actually not only selling art, but we are actually selling Malaysian tourism, Malaysian arts and culture, Malaysian business, you see, and also we are creating a platform to network and to brand. You see, when an art piece is hung on the wall, everyone will think that it's an art piece for sale, but actually it's not. When we went there, we sold the idea to the legal firms, the accounting association, the banks, premier bankings, and we told them pick up a night and bring your value customer in to appreciate Malaysian art. You see, from there, when we appreciate Malaysian art, we also promote Malaysian art. Not only promoting Malaysian art, but we also promote Malaysian culture, Malaysian business, because other Malaysians will come in and mix with the bankers and everything. So business, there's a platform of everything. So you see, that is just a very simple reason for moving forward. We need a soft touch of arts, culture, history to bridge the wall. Once we bridge the wall and the opposite side understand, things will get better through. We'll make more money. That is the truth. Through technology and like what Edmond said, we will create more unity, not only for the Chinese, but a unity of the world. That's what I'm bringing here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chean. So if any of you have any questions, please type in your questions into the chat box, and I'll try to read out the questions to the panel members. So I'd like to play the devil's advocate here this morning and ask each of the panel members. It seems to me that all of you are talking about linking the Chinese diaspora back with China and also with the wider world. And in Edmond's case, talking about the Chinese diaspora working with the local communities in the post-pandemic recovery. The question I have is a very simple question. The sort of things that you guys are talking about, cultural understanding, leveraging on the networks, business acumen, all these things you guys were already doing before the pandemic. So what's the difference? What's the difference in terms of the things that you guys are doing that can really help us in terms of the post-pandemic recovery? And related to this question is that one of the things that has changed dramatically during the pandemic is that there was this rise in tensions between China, the US, and the rest of the world. So the question I want to ask you guys is that the suggestions you made, what is it that is different from the pre-pandemic days, and how do we deal with this issue of sort of an anti-Chinese sentiment that is being spread throughout the world? So Dato, can I start with you? You have to unmute yourself.
Unmuted?
Yes.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay. We can, as I'm based in Germany, some of the time, like half a year, I think it's important to engage in the business councils also in Germany. For example, the Asian German Business Council or the Chinese German Business Councils to get more of dialogues going to help diffuse the anti-Chinese sentiment that had been unfortunately brewing during the pandemic.
No, my question is that you talked about leveraging on intercultural understanding.
Yes.
My point is that those things were already being done before the pandemic. So what is the different things that you're suggesting that is different that will help post-pandemic recovery?
Well, what we can do, maybe what we were doing before, yes, we had forums to talk about different cultures and how to how to understand each other. But now, I think people, I agree with Edmond, like what he's doing in London, his organization is doing programs to involve the government. So I think, what we can do is not only on to involve government or people in practices, but now we should go more to the ground, engaging people on the ground to spread the cultural, to help break down the cultural wall. That way.
Thank you, Dato. Thank you. Stanley, can I come to you?
Yes. Actually, I'm actually doing this right now. We know that hotels in Malaysia are distressed. Some of them may not survive. So I'm working with groups of people in Malaysia and in Indonesia, bringing tourists back to Malaysia. So we built a booking engine and a ticketing engine specifically for the halal market. So I'm the one that's engineering how this is done as we speak. So this is one example of how we can help revitalize Malaysia post-pandemic.
So you're saying that if the pandemic had not happened, you would not be doing this sort of stuff?
Well, we were already thinking about doing it, but now it's more intensive work being done.
All right, thank you. Dr. Mabel, you mentioned about leveraging on China and technology in the post-pandemic recovery. So the question I'm asking is the same question I'm asking all the others. What is it that you're doing now that is different from pre-pandemic days?
Yeah, this is a very, very important question. Thank you very much. It's quite inspiring discussion before. Actually, from my perspective, I think the most important issue before and after pandemic is not just the technology or something else. The most important issue is that in the pandemic, the China, if we see domestic Chinese people and the diaspora Chinese people, it's both are part of the brand of China. So I think stigmatization of China right now is a very key issue for whole Chinese people. I think that is quite important. Of course, in the past few decades, Chinese economy go very fast. The rest of the world is adjusting to China's emerging. So it's a process. But the pandemic has happened, and stigmatization has happened as well. So it's bad for the whole diaspora Chinese people and the domestic Chinese. I think it's quite important for the diaspora Chinese people to bridge China and the world, to reduce the misunderstanding, between Western country and China. I find the tension between US and China, the competition, or people say confrontation, it's serious. At this moment, I think the whole diaspora Chinese should do something like for the brand of China. As because some people say we should trace the origin of the pandemic or something else. There is a kind of right now, currently this is the US is organizing the democracy summit. China, of course, domestically in Beijing, we have another democracy summit as well. But I think right now the most important issue for whole Chinese people is that how to make our own brand, more acceptable for the whole world. That is very important. Of course, we can do something together, like promote our culture and do some dialogues, conversations to reduce the misunderstanding. There are some people, of course, they dislike China, they hate Chinese people. But there are other audiences, the third parties. We should have our actions. Have a lot of events like today. We have a summit together to promote promote domestic and Chinese. China is a whole brand for the world. So maybe we can do something together. Like just now, the senior gentleman mentioned that we should, the retired Chinese people can help the community, can help the business overseas. And those SMEs in different countries held by Chinese people. We should help them go through the pandemic. A lot of those issues we should sit together. But I think the most important issue is that how to balance the voice around the world for Chinese people. Thank you.
Thank you, Mabel. Mr. Chean, I'd like to come back to you. You mentioned that you've been working in this space of trying to promote culture as a key item and bringing the arts into different communities. And you talked about bringing Malaysian art to Australia. So the question I want to ask you is that how does this add the post-pandemic recovery and what's the difference with doing it now, say, when you were doing it before 2019?
Well, moving forward, doing it now and doing 2019 is that if you are in Malaysia, before 2019, things are not so sensitive, things are not so segregated, So moving forward into post-pandemic, we must understand one thing, either we live as a community, as Malaysian, or we live as Chinese, Malay, Indians, or Kadasan, So my philosophy in life is very simple. It's only about 3 words: supply, demand, and product. You see, so if we want the product, if we want the demand to be a peaceful a good economy, a safe society, and understanding friendship. So what can we supply, and what's the product? Of course, the product is a platform of coming together. You see, so what do we supply? What was to supply to create that platform? That is very important. Of course, we will, just now the panel from China was saying, there are a few groups of people, the people that already dislike us, that cannot be helped. That's too bad, that's already done deal, that's the far extreme. But we still have the groups that are doubtful, we still have the groups that are okay, and the groups that like. So these are the three groups that, we can lure over for them to understand that to create a peaceful economy, a great economy, a peaceful society will lead to a better post-pandemic recovery, rather than, now things are getting a bit weird, it's a bit sensitive. I don't think it's only in Malaysia, but a lot of people is playing on the sentimental value of, of anxiety, of hardship, of poor and everything. So they're playing on it to disrupt the whole economic situation. But to move on, like what I said, we need people to understand. To let them understand means we need to bring everyone together, create understanding, not through arts, through culture, through history. So whichever everyone is good at, then we can promote unity. That is very important, because without unity, no matter how you preach, it's going to be a tough post-pandemic. That's what I said. Thank you.
Thank you. Edmond, I want to come back to you. You're the only one who gave a real-life example of community involvement, which is your organization working with the London authorities to reach out to especially the undocumented workers, undocumented Chinese diaspora, to make sure that they have access to the vaccine and all that sort of thing. So moving forward, in terms of the post-pandemic recovery, what is the next step for organizations such as yourself? How do you build on your initial success and really, this panel is also about the Chinese diaspora. How do you reinforce, the brand that the Chinese diaspora is part of those communities and do play a central role and should be accepted, rather than, people see the Chinese diaspora as part of this big game between the US and China?
Well, Chair, it's a very good question, and all my earlier speakers, co-speakers have given you some excellent examples. And mine is very simple. It's all about being able to focus now on yourself, externally and internally. So on the external, it may not be a bad thing to be driving nice cars, flashing a bit of wealth, having some nice Chinese cuisines. All these are good things, and it's not a bad thing. But I think it's time, during these current new normal times, unity and community and the sense of community spirit is even more important. So you got to start looking at yourself inside. You got to look at internally, what are you? What are you made of? Can you go out there and help not just the Chinese community, not just our Chinese diaspora, translating our compassionate, our caring nature. And don't get me wrong, there are people who are very kind outside, who donate their time, their talent, who are volunteers. What about yourself? Have you actually volunteered? That kind of thing. So that you got to start looking at yourself, so that people from the outside can start looking at you and what you are made of and what are your values. Simple as that. Don't care too much now about how people look at you from the outside. Start looking at yourself from the inside. And this will champion our cause for being a community that is mindful and totally minded about other people too. Because when we live and we go out and live outside with other communities, we've got to live together. Alright? So this is my 2 pence, Chair. Alright? Look at yourselves. Look at yourself internally. And see how you can add that social value to the wider good of the community. Thank you. Thank you.
So can I summarize one of the key points that you want to get across to the people attending this summit? is that it is very important to, instead of just focusing on the business aspect or the technological aspect, you should really focus on the local community, how you can integrate yourself in the local community, and the best way of doing that is actually to help the local community, regardless of the scheme type.
My answer is not negotiable. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. So we've sort of run out of time, so I'm going to give every one of you 1.5 minutes to sum up any key takeaways you want the rest of the people attending this summit. So can I start with Dato first? Dato, do you have any key takeaways?
Hello, can you? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Yes. I would like to stress on the issue, and I concur with Chean, Edmond, because I'm not from the business community. So the importance of breaking down barriers and reaching out to people, also through the arts and music. Thank you.
Thank you, Dato. Stanley from Canada, do you have any key takeaways you want to summarize?
My philosophy is, I'm old man, I've learned a lot in my young days, I have lots of influential friends and connections, so I'll impart my knowledge to the younger generation who will carry on this journey for me.
Thank you, that's a really positive outlook. Dr. Mabel from Beijing, what is the key takeaway you want everyone to know about the post-pandemic recovery and how the diaspora can assist?
Yeah, thank you, James, for your great moderation. Actually, I think at this moment, it's not easy for everybody, for any countries. Domestically in China, people say, oh, we should protect 3 issues in next year. The first one is protect the guarantee you have a green QR. In China, if you have green QR, it means you can access any venues. Without that, you have to be quarantined. Second one is safeguarding yourself, your body. Healthy is very important. The third one is safeguarding your career, your job position. I think at this moment it's not easy for everybody, especially for the Chinese. The tensions between geopolitical issues between US and China, and there's the pandemic stigmatization for the Chinese people, for whole ethnic Chinese. It's quite, I can understand it, even in domestic China. Not easy for everybody. But at this point, we should be positive. I think in the past 1,000 years, Chinese people, Chinese community stay together. We are the longest civilization in the world. We can stay together to continue to develop and improve our civilization. I think at this moment, we should do more conversation and dialogues to reduce the misunderstanding between Chinese people, even Chinese people and domestic Chinese people. I believe that is the whole brand of Chinese. So we should stay together, have more dialogues, conversations with the rest of the world to promote our culture, to make more people understand us. Even those people from the third parties, from other parts of the world can understand Chinese civilization and their culture more. Then have the more, positive attitude to the whole brand for the whole Chinese community. Thank you.
Yes. So to sum it up, basically you're saying that the more people who understands the real Chinese culture and the real China, then this will lead to better relations between China and the rest of the world. Thank you. Yes. So we have a very interesting question that just came up in the chat box, and that question is directed to you, Dr. Mabel. And the question is very simple. Is China still adopting the zero COVID policy, or has China moved on? Is China still sticking to the zero COVID policy, or has China moved on from that policy?
You ask me?
Yes, I'm asking you.
Sorry, I thought you had. So yeah, We, as a think tanker, we are encouraging Chinese government, have the more policy to open the borders to the Chinese, to engage them more in the future. But as the pandemic situation is not so stable, it's turbulent, the new virus happened again, so I think the policymakers have not the big decision going on to open that borders. But I think in the future, we should how to balance the economic situation and the virus and the pandemic situation. That is a big challenge for Chinese government. I think they are doing research on this. But I think we should explore more positive ones to have more international community members access to China. Then we also have a kind of path to balance the accessing and the pandemic protection.
Yeah.
That is
So as a follow-up, as you know, right, many Western countries have adopted the policy of living with COVID. In other words, they think it's not possible to suppress COVID. It's not possible to have zero COVID. So their strategy is to live with COVID. China, as far as I know, is still pursuing the zero COVID suppression, total suppression of COVID. Will this policy change in the future?
It depends on the situation. I think as Winter Olympic Games in Beijing will happen, and I think after that will be better. And everything right now in China is to protect, to safeguard the Winter Olympic Games can happen smoothly. So this is a key issue. After that, I think maybe we have more tolerance on the situation of the virus. As the virus situation is changing every day, nobody knows what will happen. Everything's turbulent. So for Chinese government, it's quite challenging as well. The country is so big. If one province happens, the situation is easier to prevail the whole country. So I think we also push Chinese government to find a new path how to balance the accession and the safeguard. I just mentioned. But I think as Chinese people, it's quite important to access China in the future. I heard about that. They are doing the research how to open the Hong Kong, open the door to Hong Kong. The Hong Kong people can go to mainland China directly. Maybe the virus is serious these days, so maybe situation is changing. Yeah, I'm not sure, but yeah, there's still some think tankers doing the research and give the advisories to central government to balance those two issues. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Stanley, I have a question for you. The question reads, in Vancouver, you have a suburb called Richmond, which is a well-known Chinese-dominated suburb in Vancouver. So the question is that, how does white Canadians look at the Chinese nowadays? I'm talking about the Canadian Chinese. How does the wider white Canadian community, what is their perception of the Canadian Chinese community? Is it positive? Is it negative?
Well, the Chinese are always looked upon as hardworking, honest, and always looking for the dollar. So,
even in the era of pandemic.
Yes, very much so. And we don't see many Chinese businesses going under during COVID. So they're very resilient. And I think there is an air of jealousy from the other communities. You know, we are very tolerant people, so we are going to strive to protect ourselves, especially the old people that are being accosted by young white people quite often. It's very troublesome, and I myself, I protect myself by not going out. So, unfortunately, this is the case, and the police are trying to do as much as they can, but Richmond is very, very big, and it's difficult to police every corner of that city.
Thank you. We understand. So, Mr. Chean, any last or key takeaways you want to share with the audience?
I think it is important that when everyone thinks that these 2 years have been bad, we need to look at the positive side of it. We need to take the positive side of it. We understand that lockdown breaks borders, and it opens up more possibility to expand the creative boundaries. Just like I think most of you will be hearing a lot about NFT marketplace, in the creative market. Technology have moved faster. Business have been forced to evolve and change. Now everyone can join event from where and from everywhere, or buy things from everywhere. Just like today. I think a few years ago we will all be gathering in Hong Kong, or in Beijing, or in Indonesia. But today, look at us. Some are in China, Canada. Of course, I'm sitting next to Edmond again. But that's the reality of it. Don't just take things negative, because you either take it half cup full or half cup empty. But last but not least, Chinese overseas, Chinese everywhere should adopt the direction of having Wenchuang, the creative economy, as a key pillar to support business and economy to develop in the worldwide economy. Thank you.
Thank you. Edmond, any last words?
Yes, mine is very simple and short. So listen carefully, please. Be a force for good. Be inspired. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Edmond. So I'd like to thank all the panel members. I think that was a really interesting panel with very good suggestions. And I think we're all aware of the role that we can play in our local communities, not only to project a very positive image of diaspora, Chinese community, but more importantly, really to convey the message to the wider community and the wider world that China is really not a threat, and that really China is really looking for opportunities, and that the rise of China is really something that all of us should learn. So with that, can I turn the panel back to the organizer, who will show us a very short video for the last panel member who was not able to make it this afternoon, Professor Kriengsak, the President of the Institute of Future Studies for Development in Thailand. Carol. Carol, are you there?
Yes. Playing the video now.
Tan Sri Michael Yeo, Organizing Chairman, World Chinese Economic and Technology Summit, and President of KSI Strategic Institute for Asia Pacific. Professor Dr. James Chean from University of Tasmania as moderator. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, it's my pleasure to be invited to be in this session to speak on the role of the global Chinese diaspora in global recovery. Let me mention that the world economy last year and this year, even in the midst of crisis, we've seen the slump, yes, but this year is better than last year. Last year was minus 3.1 GDP growth. And this year, we grow by 5.9% from last year. Of course, we haven't gone back to the pre-COVID situation, but we're getting better. Maybe because we have get to know the COVID issue more, and we have seen vaccination process going around the world, at least in the developed world, in huge number. The lockdown that has been implemented has declined in popularity and allowing the economy to start moving forward somewhat. But we're still on the path of recovery, and the risk is still there. We've seen Omicron coming into the stage around many countries and will increasingly be a force to be reckoned with. But how do we bring the global economy out of this crisis? China is a main factor that we need to look at. And let me focus on China. Not China alone, they can do the job of recovery, but it's a major factor. It's the second largest economy. It has been less affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. And the Chinese economy last year grew at 2.3%, and this year expected to be 8.5%. Therefore, we can depend somewhat on China, because China also, apart from handling economically very well and also handling the pandemic very well, the motivation of China as the second largest economy also is hoping to create a sphere of influence that is expanding around the world. The Chinese, though, have slowed down somewhat in foreign direct investment from China capital, but it's on the trend of moving forward. Therefore, Chinese diaspora around the world that's connected with the Chinese economy in the mainland China can work together for a role of recovery because they are closely related. The overseas Chinese diaspora and the Chinese in the mainland working together will be very effective, not only in China alone, which FDI in China, 60% was accounted by the Chinese diaspora around the world, but also the Chinese diaspora is spreading all over the world, between 40 to 60 million people in 148 countries in 6 continents. But how do we do the recovery with Chinese diaspora in its role? One, we need to connect the world to China. And the world has been connected to China for decades. And increasingly, in this time of difficulty, we need to engage the connection of China to the world. What are the obstacles need to be taken down? The Chinese that has locked down the economy, closed the border because of fear, has to really bring the lockdown into non-existence soon. The border has to be open. And because of the size of the people who are infected by COVID is still there, the Chinese has to also learn to live with the world when the world is living with COVID. In my opinion, trade and investment that has been based on the old relationship through the Chinese diaspora can be very helpful. 90% of trade in Indonesia is connected to China because of the Chinese diaspora in Indonesia, for example. The Chinese diaspora have to work together with the world and become the hub of China to the rest of the host countries. The trade hub, investment hub, assistance hub. They also need to do the second thing, networking between the Chinese diaspora. We need not only connect the Chinese diaspora with China in the mainland, we also to network among ourselves, the Chinese diaspora, because this network can be very influential and it can move away from the centralized network to more become a decentralized network. How to do that? We need to create database of Chinese diaspora so that we can match the trading partners, investment partners, to create platform for trade investment to happen among the diaspora of the Chinese. We need to create structure and interaction within the Chinese diaspora. The third point is lobbying for the support of global recovery. The world has engaged in the nationalistic and protectionistic style for the last 2 years, which is hindering recovery. We need the Chinese diaspora to lobby due to their wealth and political influence to make every country that they live in and resides to be open for support, pro-support of the recovery. We need to bring the Chinese diaspora back into many areas that need help through investment and trade. Chinese diaspora can push the policy forward and give weight for recovery so that the country is more open, not so protectionist. My fourth point would be promoting knowledge and technological transfer. The Chinese diaspora have been investing in many technological companies around the world. 50% roughly in Silicon Valley are Chinese diaspora. 25% of the Chinese people are in many areas of India. Chinese reverse brain drain can be helpful to bring the technology from the West back to other parts of the world and China. The macro plan of the central government in terms of attracting talents, national plan of development of talents, and the micro plan of local talents development and recruitment of high-level talents from Chinese diaspora and other kind of people around the world can be very helpful to bring China into the major scene of science and technology research even more than it has been. The Chinese diaspora can also be very helpful in other countries that they live in to bring technology from China into other countries, technology from the West to be in other countries that they live in. Therefore, the Chinese diaspora can be very helpful in all kinds of technology, including digital transformation, tech startup, and so on. Let me conclude by saying that the role of the Chinese diaspora can be powerful if we wake up this dragon, to make this dragon a very active, lively, and very energetic dragon in the world today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, all the panels, and to Dr. Chean. We come to the end of the session, and thank you for your participation and for answering some of the questions. We hope that you will join back to the main room for the closing address, because we will be having the event over in Shandong next year. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Mabel, Chancy, and everyone else. Hope you have a good day ahead. Thank you very much. Thank you.